The moral of my last 2 years has been, how am I perceiving these things? How can I take even the worst things possible that have happened to me or that I've done to myself, and can I find a positive? Can I find the growth and the lesson?
I'm curious, what is that legacy you want to leave in the world?
I want people.
I know, dude, I was looking, and the last time we had a coaching call was actually in June of 2022.
2 years now,
That's
almost two
wild.
years.
So I'm really interested to see where things are, because I mean, we've been keeping up through socials, but we haven't really got to actually have a face to face.
I actually sit down again. Yeah, it's awesome.
So I think that's a good place to start, really, is how has things been in the last few years for you?
Rough, if I'm being honest, and I feel like it's important to, take an honest assessment of one's situation and one's position. It's been rough. I've made a lot of really bad decisions. I made a lot of really good decisions. I made my life a little bit harder than it really needed to be, but I also made other lives easier than they could have been. Last we spoke, I was living in Jersey,
Yeah,
and it was just a couple months after that that I decided to move back to Rhode Island, get back in my son's life, and so I did that. Stayed up there for just under 2 years. I was working a job at a cafe when I first got up there. And then that's when I started my photography. Went out, got my first camera, started working for the lottery at the end of last year, effectively just to save up enough money to keep buying photo equipment.
yeah, for sure.
And then I just left that job about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Uh, I feel like I was pulled back to Rhode Island. The perspective I've been leaning into lately is
Mhm.
that it was not so much to have my son back in my life, but I was pulled back to Rhode Island in order to be a father in my son's life. It's not about me having a son, it's about my son having a father.
Yeah,
It's that simple. Flipping the way you look at things really helped me put things into perspective of, who am I doing it for? What are the reasons? And that's it, how I'm able to take some of these rough times and go, but if I'm doing it righteously, if I'm doing it for a just cause, then things are bound to work in their own way. So it was rough. The last couple of years have been rough, but I do feel like I was pulled back to Rhode Island for a purpose. I completed that purpose twofold. Number one, to be back in my son's life. And number two, to develop and focus on this photography
yeah,
passion. It's really opened a lot of doors for me, and I'm motivated. I'm encouraged to, you know, get out of my own way, get back on God's path, and kind of see really where this thing can take.
for sure. I can already tell, even just because I looked back at our last recording for like 2 seconds, because I had a few moments, and even just seeing the energy that you bring now, you can just sense a difference already in your life since then.
It's crazy. And you got to think, man, I'm on what I think it was a week ago today. Look, yeah, look at me staring at my watch over there on my dresser. A week ago today, that I got on the train and come down, to Virginia. It was only 4 days prior to that. So last Monday, I'm still dealing with a breakup. I'm still dealing with a woman that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, deciding that she didn't want to spend another second around me. It's crazy to think that somebody can go through all those trials and tribulations and yet still have this energy, but the energy don't come from me. It comes from all up there. You know what I mean?
Good.
There's a time and a place to feel sad. There's a time and a place to feel hurt. There's a time and a place to feel anger. But the important thing is to remember that these are all temporary emotions. These are all phases of being. None of it's permanent. None of it determines the rest of our life. I mean, even just the rest of the day, you could restart your day at any time. And it's a positive impact. Somebody can put themselves through the misery that I've put myself through
Yeah, for sure.
just in the past 2 weeks, and yet still have a positive mindset, because at the end of the day, it's all change, it's all growth, it's all development, it's all maturity. And the only way to realize those things is to take an honest step back. I made a lot of mistakes this past 6 months, this past couple of years. I'm always going to make mistakes. The thing that I'm learning these days is, how about we try to make different mistakes?
I'm so glad to hear all this, Caleb. For real, it's so great to see you glowing and motivated with this new passion of photography, and I love to see it. And you have some great work. Definitely, people need to go check you out. So I'm already that we're what a couple minutes in, and I'm already telling to go check you out.
There went. Oh, hold up. That's
Uh,
going to get to my motherboard. Hold on.
yeah, go for it.
So
Let's
let
talk.
that be a lesson to all you kids out there watching this program right now. I don't care how much you think I'm not going to knock into it. I ain't going to move my laptop. I ain't going to not. Do not ever put a cup of coffee on your laptop. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Oh, man.
So now I'm mad and coffeeless. This is awesome. It happens, man. See, whose fault was it? Whose fault is it that I spilled a cup of coffee on my laptop? Mine. Why? Because I put the cup of coffee on my laptop. Did I go, this is probably a bad idea. I'm going to do it anyways because I'm pretty sure I know better. Yes, I did.
Oh, that's so good.
And what happened? God spilled my cup of coffee into my laptop. Thank you.
It's so funny.
Now I'm drinking water.
Me too. Cheers.
Cap.
That's me every time. I'm so worried of that happening. So when I saw it happen, I was like, "Oh, no."
Yep. And I'm like, I'm looking down and I see that it's like starting to creep onto the space bar. I'm like, rip the power cord out.
You fix it quick. Oh, man. Well
And I just ran the Boston Marathon 3 or 4 times going through the house to get paper towels.
well,
Woo.
we survived. We're here.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
let that be a lesson that, sometimes our plans are not what we think are going to happen. It's real easy for me to get upset or, oh man, I just spilled a cup of coffee. Oh man, somebody knocked a cup. But it's, I don't know. With what I've been through over the past few years,
mhm,
instead of focusing on, oh man, this is the thing that I thought was going to happen that didn't, it really leads me to a place of wondering, what was I just prevented from happening?
mm,
You know what I mean? What was just blocked from my life that I thought was a crisis that, you know what I mean? There might have been some hacker from Istanbul trying to crack into my computer right now. You know what I mean? It's a
yeah,
long shot, but it's a shot.
come on. Hey, and to piggyback off of that, last week, me and my wife were gonna go to Orlando, to Universal, a few days away from the kids, had it all planned out, and the night before, she started feeling bad, and our daughter started running a fever. And easily, I was pretty frustrated at the time, but I also in that moment, just like you said, I felt like, I'm looking at this as God's protection.
Right.
Who
Right.
knows? I might have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, somewhere in that line, and instead of doing that, and
Yep.
because putting myself in harm, I was here, got some more time with the family, even though it wasn't exactly what we wanted. It was probably what we needed.
But it was
So,
what you
God,
needed.
that's
Exactly.
man, I'm curious. Okay, so between the last 2 years have been such a I feel like night and day difference for you. What do you think's been that shift for you that's put you into this space that you're in now?
Realizing that my life isn't for me.
That's
Realizing that this world is not inherited from our parents, it's borrowed from our children. That, I was we're about the same age. We were raised on the American dream and sold on a promise of a life that is frankly unattainable at this point. That reality has ceased to be. We're living in a different reality, and that's okay. And it's not to say there's not avenues to success and not, paths forward through the mire, but the world that I was promised as a child does not exist and cannot exist anymore. And the world that I want my son to inherit does not look like a world I want him to be any part of. There's still too much ugliness in the world. There's too much us against them. You know what I mean? And it's so my realization was the only way that I can make the world a better place for my son is for me to do something about it. And the only way for me to do something about it is to get out of that funk of negative self talk and self doubt. And, well, I can't do this. And, what have I done in my life to afford me any credibility to make a change? And to realize that that's all nonsense, man. That's all nonsense. Every single person put on this earth has been blessed inherently with the ability to make a change in their community, in their family, in their environment. And I feel that it's our responsibility to do so. I wasted a lot of time in my life. I wasted most of my teenage years, all of my 20s, and the first few years of my 30s living for myself and living for my own will. And I don't have anything to show for that. I mean, that's just simple fact of the matter is at 35 years old, I have nothing to show for it. I
yeah.
have nothing to show for the 35 years I've been on this planet. And coming to the realization that I'm not okay with that for myself anymore. And I'm not okay with that for my son, for him, I don't know what they talk about in the schoolyard or whatever, but I remember when I was in third, fourth grade, what's your daddy do? What's your daddy do? What's your daddy do? Oh, he's a bum. He's a bum. He don't do nothing. "No, that's not really what I want to hear about myself, you know." And the only way to change what folks say about you is to change what you do. Ain't no other way.
That's so good. Man, there's so many different ways we can in this conversation. I'm excited. We're gonna try to keep it to an hour. We'll see
Okay.
what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm curious, what's on your mind? What do you want to focus in on a little bit?
You know, I think the lesson for me this year so far is perspective. It's the ability to take an event and to see all sides of it and then to take the positive away from it, to focus on the positive of things and to realize, like I said, that when God closes a door, is it closing it for us or from us? And that all starts up here. That, you know, the moral of my last 2 years has been, how am I perceiving these things? Am I perceiving things as slights against me, or am I perceiving things as opportunities for myself to make a change in my life and somebody else's life? And to really focus on just how can I look at things in a productive light that puts me on the path to success? Because that involves taking a real inventory of the negative as well. You know, you have to look at your whole life. Like I said, man, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes in the last 5 years, and it's realizing that, you know, we have to make mistakes. It's the only way we learn. We have to keep growing and keep learning. And so I guess that's just where my mind's been fixated lately. Is how can I take even the worst things possible that have happened to me, or that, you know, I've done to myself, and can I find a positive? Can I find the growth and the lesson? How much of my nature do I allow to help me or hinder me? You know, I'm a very curious person. I'm a very analytical person. And sometimes that helps me. Sometimes that gets me into a lot of trouble. You
Mhm.
know, so
Good.
it's going back to perspective. How can I use my nature to best propel me and my community forward as opposed to letting it hold me back?
For sure. And I agree. It's so easy to slip into that if we're not careful.
Absolutely. You got to be mindful, constantly mindful, you know,
Oh,
and that's another thing that I guess I could speak on is radical mindfulness. You know, it's one of the biggest issues that I had in this last relationship that I was in was mindfulness. And you know, I was just really getting tired of hearing, "Oh, I didn't think about it. Oh, I didn't, you know, that's fine the first time. That's fine the first 7 times. That's a little less fine on the 15th time. Now we're on the 50th time. Oh, I didn't think about it. Okay, but we need to start thinking about things." And I guess a lot of my struggle lately has been being stuck in a cycle of self-thought that is oppressive, that is belittling to myself. That, "Oh man, you're 35 years old and you still, you know, you can't get it. Oh, you're 35 years old, you just a drug addict. You just a junkie that don't do drugs no more. You know, you're 35 years old, you ain't got nothing to show for it."
that was a great point. You were saying how you got to a point where you realized that the negative talk that you had and the thought
Hmm,
patterns of negativity weren't really they weren't serving you
they're
and
not.
serving
And
others. And I think that's a huge aspect that people have to see. Cause and again, even in this whole personal development space that we can find ourselves in, is you have two camps. You have the camps that believe that you can be positive about all situations
hmm,
to the point where that can be too extreme.
there's such a
Also,
thing as toxic
yeah,
positivity.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And then on the flip side, you have the people like I think about the what's his name? Goggins. Dave Goggins, I think. He's like a motivational speaker. He's almost driven by pain and negativity.
Mm,
It's great and all. That can be a great tool, but when it's put to that extreme, I feel like it's doing more harm than good. And
right.
I think that's a great perspective you're taking because you realized all of your life, you made decisions that weren't obviously great. And then you came to a point that you realized the pain of staying the same was less than the pain of
Change. Absolutely.
so you made the shift. Now, on the other side of that shift, it's very easy to look at your past and be like, "Oh, I was this," and almost allowing your past to shape your future, but to go with you on your future.
Absolutely. It's
And
a ball and chain that you carry
yeah,
with.
and I think that it's really important to give yourself that permission to release that.
Mm,
Because and I think about the scripture, I mean, it's in 2 Corinthians 5:17, it says that through Christ we are born again, we're made a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, we are a new
Mhm.
creation. And it's that idea of I really feel like we if we're always growing, we always have the ability to leave our past selves behind. Like,
Absolutely.
I always jokingly, but seriously tell my wife she's married to a new man every few years, honestly, every a few months, because I've been committed to wanting to grow, and I
Mm.
mean, we're about to celebrate 5 years of being married, and I can definitely tell you that year 1, Red, way different than year 5, Red. I've learned so much, I've grown so much, and I've still got so much to go. But yeah, I think that's a beautiful distinction you've made, is you realized, "Okay, this wasn't serving me, so therefore I'm going to pivot and do something different." It's
I'm
huge.
ready to make a change. And that's exactly it is to because there are some aspects of what I was doing that are still serving. Now, are they serving a righteous purpose or not? Maybe called into question. Do I find stability and stagnation? 100% I do. You know what I mean? That is to say that, it's easy to say, oh, change is scary. And yeah, this sucks where I am right now. This really sucks where I am right now. But like you said, the sucking of my suffering currently is tremendously less than the fear of the unknown. And it's flipping that perspective to go, what am I so scared of? You know what I mean? I'm hurting right now. I am suffering right now. And the reality of the situation, I may still be suffering then, but until I get there, I'm not going to know if I am or not. I'm not going to know what's on the other side of that door until I open it. And the only way that I can open that door is to close this one behind me.
Yeah,
As I was listening to the talk with Mike Simon about, in order to grab onto the new
yeah.
thing in life, you got to let go of the old thing. If you've got your hand stuck in a jar of pickles, all you're ever going to get is pickles.
That's so good, and I didn't even get to I'm glad you mentioned that because I was even thinking of other ways that it's been put, and one of my mentors put it in the idea of living open-handed. It's
Yes.
that idea of or another way I've heard it put was being a conduit and not a container. Because a lot of times we're sitting there, we wanna hold things. Like, we wanna
Right.
hold the thing and be like, "This is
I
mine."
want it to be mine.
Yeah.
Right. I want it to be
But
mine. But it's
but what if we chose to be the conduit? What if we were the in between? What if we the thing that it passes through? Yeah, dude, oh, man, that's so good.
exactly.
I love that
What
I
if what if instead of me wanting to play myself, which is all I'm doing is playing myself, what if I just allow myself to be tuned and played by the creator of the message?
yeah,
It makes it a hell of a lot easier because I don't have to worry about am I getting in my own way? Am I making the right decisions? Like I said, God gives us guideposts. And he as long as you know how to open your eyes and you're willing to open your eyes, that's a lot of the other thing too, is this willingness. It's real easy. I made these decisions or rather these realizations, years ago that I was making a lot of negative choices. I was making very bad decisions. I was not doing the things that I should have done and doing the things that I shouldn't have done. But it was only until I was willing to make a change. You can realize it all you want. You know what I mean? I can realize that my shoe's untied for half the day, but it's not until I bend down and tie my shoe that I've eliminated the chance of me tripping and falling.
and that also goes back to that idea of it's really important who we surround ourselves with.
Yes.
And I mean, that's even why I became a coach.
Right.
Is it's not to get rich and famous, like me and Mike were talking about it. And like rich and famous would be cool. Like,
But it's
and
not the
not the
point.
goal. Yeah,
It's
like
not the
literally is my point is like I love the fact, and I mean to go back to like you were one of my first free clients when I first started out.
yeah.
I'll never forget that moment that we in one of our first sessions when you were talking about the anxiety you were experiencing. And
Mhm.
I just like simply said, "Stop calling it your anxiety because that's not."
Carried that with me.
And like that moment, that one moment shifted your life in such a way like that set me to feel like I can do this. I can help people.
I
I was sold. I was like, I'm holding on to this because if we can have these conversations and I can get that experience for you, who else can I help? And that's
exactly.
just that. And I've gotten obsessed and then just so passionate about doing that. That's
Mhm.
what matters is like, yeah, it'd be cool to help people get rich or whatever. Like, if that's your thing, that's cool. My thing's so much deeper. I
Right.
wanna really help people see what you've started to see, and
It's
you touched on some, and I'm curious, so the questions that I was mentioning is this
Mhm.
idea of it's having an exponential life, and life becomes an acronym, So the L's legacy, the I's impact, the F is freedom, and the E is energy. So together that's life. And just going through a set of questions that go with each letter. And you
Write that.
mentioned something about your son. So I'm curious, what is that legacy you want to leave in the world? Like, what do you want people to remember you for?
I want people, it's a tough question because when I really think about it in my heart of hearts, I want to be remembered as someone who helped people. I want to be remembered as someone who had to be picked up out of the mud more times than they could count. And they picked somebody else out of the mud even more times than that. I want my legacy for my child, for my life, for everything to be that, it does not matter what we face in life so long as we take our problems on earnestly, honestly, with righteous authority, that we can overcome anything. And that there are so many people out there that all they need is a hand up. All they need is a smile and a, man, I really like your shirt today. And that could change their whole world. And that's on the small end. I want to be a portrait photographer because one of the quotes that I've heard recently that really stuck to me is, if you want to show the world what you look like, you just take a picture. But if you want to show the world who you are, you make a portrait. And I want to be able to do that for people. The folks that think, oh man, I'm not photogenic. I sit them down and, you know, put something on their Facebook that, you know, they're proud of, on their LinkedIn or whatever. The other thing of that is, I really want to make memories for people. You know, I, we're we're only on this planet for a short period of time. So you're never going to live forever by living forever. The only way that you get to live forever is to have a legacy that carries on. And the only way to have a lasting legacy for anything good is to do the good things. I mean, we still talk about a lot of negative people too, but again, that's the impact they've made. And we get to choose whether we make it a positive or a negative impact. And that's what I want is I want my legacy to be that I saw somebody in need and I helped them
Mm,
because I was in need so many times and there was somebody there to help me.
that's so good. And I love that you touched on the fact that you want to be a portrait photographer and how you see you see the value in that in this way.
It's a small change, but let me just correct you there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to be a portrait photographer.
You are.
I
You are.
am
Thank you. Thank you. Good point. You are.
I
And
am
that
a portrait photographer,
yeah,
and
that
because it's a mindset, and
exactly.
it's just like what Noah was saying about the affirmations versus affirmations.
Exactly.
I'm rich. Okay,
Yeah.
but I take really good pictures and I make people feel good about themselves.
Or even how he worded it with the questions. How do I take those pictures? Why do I take
Right? Why am I so dang good at taking these
Yeah.
pictures?
Yeah, I love that.
It's
No, and that was a great fix, and you're totally right. And with that, I think it's beautiful too, and it makes me think of so my wife's a hairstylist.
Mhm.
She's so much more than a hairstylist. Like, obviously, she's been doing this for what, almost 7, 8 years now.
Right.
So she's
As a hairstylist, you're a therapist. You're
exactly. Exactly. And
so
it's
many
that
other hats.
and it's that point that she's not when someone's in her chair, she's not just doing their hair. She's making them see, just like you said with your portraits, and I feel like it's gonna be the same way when people see that. And I think right there, what you just
Mhm.
said is a portrait with you isn't just another photo.
Right.
It's an opportunity to help someone see themselves in a way that they've
In a
never
better light. And right, in a way they didn't even imagine they could be seen. And, that's just a portion of it though. That's because that's a very important part that I am excited to provide is professional headshots for professional folks. But on the flip side of that, I want to make memories for families. You know what I mean? We got Mother's Day coming up pretty soon here. It's the kind of thing where like, let me get your kids together with a handwritten sign that says, I love you, mom. And that's something that you can hang on the wall. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you get to look at this like I was telling you earlier, nobody's gonna remember my name for a Facebook or a LinkedIn profile picture, but they will remember my name because it's signed on the signature right there.
Yeah, so good. I'm curious, so that's the L, that's the legacy, and then the I is impact. Can you make your impact go deep or wide or both?
I don't see why both isn't an option.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that that's a good question because now that makes me think what's better. You can't. I don't think you can have both out the gate. You got to start with one and develop the other. But
Mm,
certainly, I don't see any reason why one couldn't have both. Now the question then becomes: is it better to start with depth or is it better to start with width? And that's an interesting question. I don't
Yeah.
have an answer for that one.
Yeah. I love asking even myself that question
That's
because I feel like depth and the weight of something is just as important as how wide your reach is. That idea
right.
of how much weight does your impact carry?
Mm. Well, and it's location too, because it's
Yeah.
like if I go out to Food Lion, right, this bottle of water for 99 cents.
Yeah.
Now, if I get on the highway, right, and I'm traveling down Interstate 95 and I stop at a rest stop, this 99-cent bottle of water just became $3.
Yeah.
I go down to Disney, Universal Studios, this $3 bottle of water is now $10.
Yeah.
The bottle of water hasn't changed.
No.
You
But
know,
the value.
the value associated to it by scarcity, absolutely, is when that's part of like us going back to the perspective thing is and putting ourselves in actually, am I putting myself in the proper position to be propelled forward? Or am I like my problem starting the business up north was that as many folks as I did know, I knew maybe like 5 or 6 people up there, and it was hard to get any clients, hard to get any real work. And I haven't even moved to Raleigh yet. I'm still a week away from getting to Raleigh. I've got 2 jobs lined up. It's because it's people I know. It's because I'm allowing myself to be put in a position where I can flourish, as
Yeah.
opposed to my own self will saying, stay here. It's comfortable.
That's so good. It also makes me think of the you've probably seen it where there's like 2 white T-shirts and they look identical.
Hmm.
And they show you the price tag. One of them is $6 from Walmart,
Yep.
and the
And the
other
other
one,
one's a Balenciaga for
oh, yeah,
like
it's like a Prada or
$700.
something.
It's her.
And you're like, "But why is these same shirts, the same materials, why are they such different prices?" And it's because of the designer.
Right. Well, you go to Walmart, right? And you buy a $30 pair of work boots and they last you through the year. But now next year you got to go and buy yourself another $30 pair of boots. And then the year
Exactly.
after that. Or you go out to a cobbler and you
Yeah,
buy a $300 pair of
yeah,
boots that you get to keep for 15 years.
yeah, I agree.
There is a
A level of quality.
There is, and
But
it takes being critical, and that goes back to the mindfulness, and that goes back to, you know, really being able to take an honest appraisal of ourselves, and with enough practice doing it, but for ourselves, we can start doing that externally as well. That, am I doing this? Am I going with this option because it's quick, easy, and available? Or am I going with it because, it matters. Am I buying the $900 t-shirt because I want a $900 t-shirt to show off and, "Ooh, look at me," or am I buying a $900
oh,
t-shirt because I can afford it and I don't have to buy another t-shirt for 10 years,
exactly.
you know?
It's so good. Goes back to perspective and the why behind it as well.
Absolutely.
Good.
You gotta do things for the right reasons. That's what
Yeah.
I'm finding out now is, we can do a whole lot of things in our life, but to even if you do the right things for the wrong reasons, it's gonna come back to bite you.
Oh, yeah, it's still the wrong thing. If
Exactly.
if at the end of the day, the legacy and impact is from a vanity and from a prideful, arrogant space, then even if you are out to help people, if you're out to help people to really help yourself, that's gonna come back, and
And
that's
and it's gonna come through. People are
oh,
gonna see that, you know
oh,
what
yeah,
I mean? They're gonna see
100%.
like, "Hey, man, this guy says that he can help people, but if you really look at him, he seems to be making money hand over fist, but what are the people that he says he's helping, how are they doing?"
Yeah,
You see a guy who, "Yeah, I'm a life coach. Yeah, I do my thing. Here's my client list," and they're all six-figure, that's the guy you listen to because
yeah,
he's not doing it for himself. The money's gonna come. That's the lesson I've learned is that, stability, money, all of that stuff will come so long as you put yourself in the right place in order to receive it. You know what I mean? And we can't do it from a place of selfishness or jealousy or desire for to put ourselves above other people. The only reason I ever want to stick my hand out to somebody else is to pull them up out the mud. You know what I mean? I can never think of myself as better than, higher than. Like I said, man, I'm just a junkie that don't do drugs. I'm not better than anybody. As long as I can be better than I was yesterday, that's good enough for me.
come on. That's great. Alright, so we have legacy, impact, the F
Freedom.
is freedom.
Oh, I wrote it
You
down,
wrote
yeah.
it down. You wrote it down. You're taking notes.
Yeah, I'm a note taker, baby.
You're great. I love this. Hey, I'll forget what I say. You'll forget what I say, but paper won't. That's so all right. So freedom. How does freedom look for you?
I was just talking about this with my buddy prior to our call. He's looking into doing his own thing too, starting his own company. And freedom, and this is just my perspective, freedom is not me getting to do whatever I want, whenever I want, screw the world, the consequences. Freedom to me is the ability to help people without restrictions. It is the ability to be able to put myself in the places where I'm needed.
Yeah.
The freedom, it does not come from, oh, I don't work a 9 to 5. I don't like that's not the ball and chain. In so much as it's by not having the 9 to 5, how many times this week have I've been afforded the blessing to be there for somebody else
Yeah.
because I don't have a 9 to 5 to be tied down to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I was, at work doing my thing or whatever, like ringing people up at Walmart or flipping
Mhm.
fives at the Burger King or whatever, I can't answer my phone. And hey, man, oh, wow, you're really not doing good. Let me call you right now.
Yeah.
The freedom is the ability to help people freely.
I love it. And I agree. And I think it's great that you touched on that because there's so many people that, again, are selling that dream, especially on social medias. I would say
Mhm.
Twitter specifically because I was in a rabbit hole for a while. I wasn't personally feeling this way, but I was in this little subculture of Twitter that was, they called it Money X because that's when it
Mhm.
changed its name. And it was so crazy to see these 16 to 18-year-old kids wanting to be life coaches, not so they can help people,
Right. But because they think there's a huge paycheck.
and that idea of freedom, and for them, freedom was not being tied down to a boss,
Mhm.
and not having all these responsibilities. Well, guess what? You're still gonna have responsibilities
Right.
more, yeah. If
Thank
anything,
you.
for owning a business, you're gonna
Have more because now not only do you have all the responsibility, but you ain't even got nobody to delegate it to at
have
first.
responsible to feed them because you're their paycheck. So, like,
Right.
oh, man, it's
It's exactly that the freedom doesn't, I mean, it entails, the oh, cool, I don't have a da 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 95 boss, whatever. But that's not what the freedom is. Those are just aspects to the freedom. But
yeah.
but that's just like saying a wheel has lug nuts, but the wheel doesn't have to be attached to a car. And if it's not attached to a car, you ain't driving nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so good, man. And I agree. I think that's such a great perspective for you to bring, not only to me, to our conversation, to yourself, but those that are going to hear this back. I'm excited about this podcast. It's been the best one yet, just because I feel like we've got this level of we know each other enough that we can
Yeah,
just,
we just jump right in.
yeah,
Yes,
and
sir.
it's
Man,
so
I've been telling people about this all week too, man.
I
I've
love.
been hyping this up. I made a post on Facebook about it too earlier this
Yeah,
evening.
yeah, I saw the post from the one that went live for what
Yeah,
the
so good, man. Oh my god, it was so good. But
it,
I'm still stuck on the one with Noah. That
oh yeah,
one,
dude. No, I've been talking to him. I might have him come back in a few months because he's got another book coming out.
nice.
I'm like, cool, let's do it. So we'll see what happens there.
That's
So Mark,
awesome.
to keep rolling on our life where we arrive at E for energy. I'm curious, what energizes, fascinates, and motivates you?
What fascinates me is
Yeah.
still to this day the miracle of life. The fact that none of this really has any good reason to exist.
Yeah.
Yet here we are.
And
I messed myself up many, many years ago by thinking a little too deeply on questions of, where we're from and why we're here and all that. And truly that I think that led to a lot of my problems, my self-made problems that I kind of became disillusioned as a result of just the things that I was reading and the things that I was learning. And to spend those years in the interim really thinking about that stuff and really trying to come to terms and wrap my head around it. That's a lot of what's led me back to my spirituality. I don't particularly follow one specific religion. I think that they all contain nuggets of truth, whether it was spoken by Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, the Buddha, Confucius, whoever it is, that these guys all really knew what they were talking about because they're coming from a universal place of truth. And, that's where my energy comes from now is the fact that I have been granted this miracle of life. And, yeah, I don't know, man. I just, because it's not to say that I don't get anxious or depressed or, I still have my gamut of emotions as well, but I get to have those these days. And it's like I said at the beginning, it's all transitional, it's all temporary. Even my time on this planet is going to be temporary. And am I going to make the most of it? Am I not going to make the most of it? And if I'm going to make the most of it, you need energy to do it. You
Yeah.
know, and where are we going to draw the source of that energy? Is it through selfish acts? Is it through, screwing other people over so we can get one over on them? Isn't one of the points that Mike brought up that I thought was fantastic was talking about these kids that see life coaching as, oh well, you have a problem, I have the solution, therefore we are here and you better listen to me because I know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. When in reality,
Yeah.
you want it to be here. I am here to support my client, to lift them up. And it's not just about coaching, but I apply that to the photography too, or just like your wife's hairstyling that, it's as soon as we get into that space, she stops being a hairstylist. I stop being a photographer. All I'm doing is fiddling with dials and
Right.
making sure that the exposure comes out right. And as long as I have this intuitive and instinctual, to the point where this is just another, it's like, I remember who I was listening to the other day that was talking about it, but you know, you you take it from being a conscious thing that you have to think
Yeah.
about to a subconscious, like, oh no, this is just what I do. And so now I can take the picture and I'm fiddling with the things and da 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 da. And I'm, yeah, absolutely. Because all this
Yeah.
is internalized. And I'm talking to, yeah, man, how'd that make you feel? Oh man, you know, I'm taking your graduation pictures. You're about to graduate next week. Are you scared? Are you happy? It affords us that opportunity to really be there in the
Yeah.
moment, present for people. And as long as we allow ourselves to be in that place honestly, openly, and righteously, we'll be provided all the energy we need to get through it.
I love that.
That's a birthright. That's not something we have to ask, beg, scream for. It's just something that we have to be willing to receive.
The unconscious competence where it's literally
It's
effortless.
just something I can do, because he was talking about like driving a car, and
Yeah.
when you're driving a car, you got to do 190 different things, but you're
Yep.
not thinking about any of them because you're thinking about this asshole just cut me off. Man, I got to get to McDonald's before my order gets cold and da da da
Yeah.
da. But all of the things you're thinking about are not, well, I have to apply pressure exactly to the gas pedal and I have to turn the steering wheel precisely 37.2 degrees to the left. And you don't think about any of that. You just do it.
Yeah.
Once you can just do it, now I can ask my wife how how her day went. I can ask my kids how their day went. Once you turn it from a conscious activity to an unconscious competence, it allows you, it just opens the doors for you to be present for every other aspect of life.
Yeah. It's almost like I feel like it's almost like a Trojan horse too. A lot of times people think they need something, but really they need something else. For instance, with the photography for you, it's they think they need a photo to capture something, but
Mm,
they may need you to be present to
right.
ask the question that
Maybe they
opens
just need
up.
somebody to listen.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. They don't, they need their picture taken. Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sitting in my studio, but they're not there to get their picture taken. There's a reason they were put in my company and in my care for whatever that is, for that 15 minutes or that half an hour, that 2 hours. And it's the realization that the picture, the photography, the portrait is what opened the door, but that's not why they're there. Because there's plenty of portrait photographers across the country. Promise you. Promise you. You can go. Take out your picture. You take a picture, or take out your camera. You can make your phone, and you can take a picture. So it's you know again the perspective of this is what I do, but it's not why I do it.
Yeah.
I take pictures of people not to take their picture, but to show them who they are, to show the world who they are. And I really like that. Some that I've been meditating on lately is the St. Francis prayer that, grant that I may seek not so much to be loved as to love, not
Yeah.
to be forgiven as to forgive. That it is not my responsibility to worry about if I'm going to be cared for, because as long as if I care for other people, my support will come. And that has been proven to me time and time again. That's the core tenet of the 12 steps is you get through all 11 steps and the last step, Guess what? Now you get to go do it for other people. And
Yeah.
that's the only way that we stay sober. That's the whole reason that I want to go back and I just want to give freely to the community that literally saved my life. Because if it wasn't for them giving freely of their time, I wouldn't have a life to go back and do anything with. That exactly. It's not about making money. This is what I do to make money and the money is going to come in, but it's about changing people's lives. It's about making them feel better about it. May I seek not so much to be loved as to love.
Yeah. And when I hear this, I'm also reminded not only for you, but for even for myself in this idea, it's very easy in such a social media driven society and world to feel like as we build businesses, we have to know the algorithm. Like it feels like we need to know the marketing. And marketing is a great tool, don't get me wrong. And I like the unorthodox approach of if your service, if what you provide as a person is so amazing,
It'll
then
speak for itself. And that's the legacy that we leave.
Mhm.
It's, you know, am I going to do advertising? Am I going to do promotion? Of course I am.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Obviously. But if I'm doing it right, all of that is going to be a minority of
yeah,
where my business comes from
yeah.
because it's
Well,
not going to come from somebody picking up the Sunday Times and go, oh, hey, Martha, we do need portraits. That's not going to happen.
oh,
But what is going to happen is Joe goes over to Martha's house and
yeah,
sees the portrait hanging over the mantle and go, hey, wow, where'd you get that done? When did you know what I mean? It speaks for itself. Exactly. And that's the other thing of, you know, why am I doing it? Am I taking folks' pictures to make money? And if that's all I care about doing, then sure, I'm gonna make a couple bucks here and there. But nobody's gonna go and be like, hey man, boy, you should really go to Rome Photo. He really knows how to take my money. Nobody's gonna say that. But you go, hey man, you should really check out Rome Photo, man. I did not know what I was getting myself into, getting a portrait taken. I mean, who wants to get a picture taken? But he made it fun. He made it interesting. And I feel good about myself. I felt good sitting in the chair. And now I feel good. Look at my damn profile picture. I feel good. You're not going to be remembered for how much money you make. You're going to be remembered for how you make people feel.
come on. So true.
You
Well,
know, it's not the money you make, it's the difference you make.
yeah. And that goes back to the quote. It's like it's not people are not gonna remember what you say. They're gonna remember how you
What you
made them.
did. Right. Well, yeah. I like that one better. But one of the things that I've been telling my friend is, exactly. People are not going to remember the things you said or didn't say, but they are going to remember the things you do. And one of the lessons that I'm trying to impart upon him right now that I've found to be valuable in my life is to not talk on plans. Some things is unavoidable. Like, you and I had to plan this
Yeah.
conversation. And in order to get any attention to it, I had to make a post. But for the most part, plans should be private. You know what I mean? Don't talk to people about what you want to do or what you're gonna do or what you're thinking about doing. Come back to them once you've done it.
That's so good. There's even like stats to prove that point. Like there's stats out there that have said that the moment someone shares to someone about what they want to do, the motivation to do it and the feelings of how you wanted to do it significantly drop.
Because
Like,
it releases that success fair
yeah,
compound in your brain that, well,
exactly.
I didn't do it yet, but I talked about it.
Yep.
So that makes me feel just as good.
Yep.
Can't be living like that.
No, you can't. Just go do it.
Just go do it. Right. And that's not to say that you have to do everything that you push your mind to either. But it again, it goes back to being mindful and being able to think critically and being able to realize, am I doing things for such and such reasons or for other reasons? And those will be the guideposts that let you know if you're on the right path or not. Am I doing things for the right reason? Am I doing it to make money or make a difference? I don't know. I think that might be my mantra for right now.
I heard it said impact first, income follows or something
That's
along
it. Yes.
it's like
And
and when you see those people that are absolutely crushing it financially, if you look at the impact that they are making, then it makes sense. And I feel like and that's another thing too, is this it's this concept of and one of my coaches that talked about it, Rich Litvin, and it was this idea of lag indicators and lead indicators, and that idea of the outcome is the lag indicator, not the lead.
Not the lead indicator, right?
And we wanna sit there and be, so focused on, I wanna make this amount, or I wanna have this amount of following. If you fill in the bl
Which to a degree is good. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
good, you keep
Personally,
going, yeah,
one of my goals, and it's something that I feel comfortable speaking on. One of my goals is I want to make $2,000 with my photography by the end of this month. That
yeah,
is an achievable goal,
that's
and it's not $2,000 is not a lot of money. I'm not trying to get rich off of it. It's a realistic, achievable goal that I've set for myself, and it's important to realize when we're doing what sort of goals we're setting for ourselves. First of all, it's important to have goals.
yeah,
I think a
yeah,
lot of my problem for so long in life was that I didn't realize what I wanted to do with my life until 6 months ago.
yeah,
I had a whole lot of things that I was interested in doing, but nothing I was ever really good at. Just things that I was decent at. And turns out I'm really good at taking pictures.
yeah,
And just the mindset change of walking around literally aimless. I mean, I did not have a set direction. I did not have a set velocity or trajectory. I was just kind of letting myself be pushed in any which old way. And I was allowing myself to get pushed by God in some directions, but I was also allowing myself to get pushed by people.
yeah,
And to realize that, I have a passion for this dang photography thing. And it's not me wanting to make money hand over fist. It's not me wanting to be rich and famous. Oh man, Caleb Rome, he's known globally worldwide for taking that. It's not about that. You
yeah,
know what I mean? But I found something that I'm good at. I found something that brings me joy. It brings joy to other people. It brings value to their lives. And to not provide that as a service, I feel is doing a disservice to myself. I was walking around literally aimless for years, and to have finally settled on a goal in my mind, the start of a goal. I don't know what the end game is going to look like, but I got my $2,000 goal for this month. I've got a few more goals. I've got like a 1 year projection. I suppose it's important to start lining these things up because now I feel motivated. Now I feel determined. Now I don't feel like, oh, I don't know why. Why do I wake up in the morning? I don't know. I'll just go back to sleep, you know? And now I have a reason, and it's just really cool that I'm finally at a point where I can align those goals and desires with righteousness, with wanting to do it selflessly. It's opened so many doors, it's greased so many cogs that, like I said, I mean, I just had the rug, and I can't even say that I had it pulled out from under me, even though that's technically what happened. But the fact of the matter is, my behavior, my decisions, my actions led up to my girlfriend getting sick and tired of me and wanting me to be gone. And that's only on me. That is not on her. You know what I mean? She had a natural reaction to my being a terrible person, frankly. And not to say that I was consistently. It maybe only happened 8-10% of the time, but that's enough. You
yeah,
know, and like I said, this only happened 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago. And yet, having the rug pulled completely out from under me, having my life completely turned upside down, having to be homeless yet again at 35 years old with not a lick to nothing in my name. And yet, in these past 2 weeks, I have found no resistance. I have found no no hardship, no trauma other than being able to process what I put myself through and what I put her through because I'm doing it for the right reasons.
mhm,
Because I'm doing this not to, make my life better but I mean it is to make my life better, don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but it's not for me anymore. It's when you start doing things for the right reasons, God opens doors for you, and that has been my lesson just in these 2 weeks is that, I'm finally starting to do things for the right reasons. I'm finally motivated towards a goal. And boy, howdy, wouldn't you look at that? The path has been opened for me,
Yeah,
and somebody even turned the street lights on.
come on.
Like but the only way to have realized that was to sit back and open my eyes, you know?
Isn't it amazing how when we take a step, then we start, like, if we're in the darkness, to use that analogy, if we're in the darkness and the best we can see is one step ahead of us, it's amazing how when we take that step, now we can see a little further.
Absolutely.
I think that there's something about that, putting the action behind it. And to think more so in to kind of go back to this whole the lag lead indicator thing, even using it practically with your goal of $2,000 by the end of this month.
Mhm.
Now you've made the goal where a lot of people go wrong is they make the goal and every day they look at, I've made X amount. And because you haven't made the X amount towards that, you begin to sit in that. But instead of sitting there and thinking what you haven't made towards that, you continue, I'm sure, to go out to talk to leads, talk to potential clients, whatever it may be. And
Absolutely.
each time you're doing that, you know how much your service costs. So you know that each time you're doing that, you're making proposed money because
Right. And
because
that's exactly it is like I'm still a week away from even getting back to Raleigh. And so obviously the money's not made yet. Money's not going to be made until it hits my pocket. But if things go the way that they are projected to go from the current talks and the current plans that I've made, I'm halfway towards that $2,000 goal already. You know what I mean? And have I made it yet? Of course I haven't. That'd be silly to think that I have. But that's exactly it, is it's just putting myself in the position to be able to receive that, $2,000, $5,000, 10, whatever it is. Maybe I want to get, 4 wedding clients by the end of June or something. It's wedding summer season, so summer's wedding season. And it's not so much like, oh man, I had this goal and ooh, I'm not even close. It's like, I mean, you have to have that realization, right? You have to have a realistic analysis of what's going on and the moves that you're making and if they're helping or hindering. But you're right, it's not worth it to sit there and go, well, I said I was going to make $2,000 and I've only made $200, and oh my god, now I'm beating myself up over it. Am I a failure? Am I No, I just haven't opportunity yet. But by beating myself up and sinking in a hole, and poor pitiful me, am I putting myself in a position to be granted those blessings? Absolutely not.
and you can always look at the effort that was expended because you can focus the inputs and you can't control the outputs. You
Right,
you can just control what you put
right,
in. And I
right.
think that's so important. I think it's great that you're thinking that. And also, I love that you touched on like finding this. It's been put the zone of genius. I feel like there's a book on it by Gay Hendricks. It's a great book. Definitely recommend that one. And basically, it's asking ourselves that question. And those listening, watching at home, you could even ask it yourself. Is you want to ask, how can I spend the majority of my time doing what I love doing most while also making my greatest contribution?
And if you can get those 2 to align,
Oh, yeah.
that's a miracle,
That's it. That's the zone of like that's the sweet spot. And the moment you get that, that's when you're really living out, I feel like living out that purpose and that calling. But man, dude, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like we could go for hours. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more tips tailored to entrepreneur dads just like you. Or you can click this video to keep learning more. And until next time, you're doing better than you think. I'm praying for you, friend. Now let's go live better than best as we conquer this week.